On her birthday, my daughter asked me not to invite her stepmother. I didn't understand why, until I saw the cake on her face and the laughter in response. Then everything fell into place. I'm Lauren, 32, and for the last few years, I've been trying to find a sense of normal in a life that rarely feels steady. I have a daughter, Ollie, who's almost 10 now, though it feels like just yesterday I was rocking her to sleep with lullabies and the weight of the world on my shoulders. Her father, Travis, he's 36, used to be the person I thought I'd build forever with. We were married for 5 years, and in that time we built a home, shared dreams, and brought Ollie into the world. But everything fell apart not long after she turned 3, and the breakup was as painful as they come, not just because it ended but because of how it ended. There was betrayal. The kind that makes your chest tighten when you think about it too long. Travis had been working closely with a woman named Jenny. I knew her in passing, mostly from office holiday parties and the occasional story he'd tell about his team. I never liked how easily she laughed at his jokes, how her hand would linger a little too long on his arm, but I never said anything. I didn't want to be the jealous wife. But my instincts had been right. A few months after I found the texts, the ones that left no room for doubt, he moved out. Within a year he and Jenny were married, and not long after that they had a son together. Lucas. He's 6 now, a sweet kid from what I can tell, and Ollie's half-brother. Ollie lives with me most of the time, but she spends chunks of the week at Travis and Jenny's house. We've tried to make it work, for her sake. To keep things civil. To let her feel like she still has a family, even if it's split between 2 different homes. She's adjusted better than I thought she would, but it hasn't been easy. There are times when she comes home quiet, like something sitting heavy on her heart that she doesn't have words for. And no matter how many times I ask, "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she just nods, shrugs, and goes off to her room. And I get it. I do. Because even now, all these years later, there are things I still don't have words for either. Ollie is a quiet, dreamy girl. She's always had that gentle stillness about her, like she's living half in the world and half in her imagination. She can spend hours curled up with a book, legs tucked beneath her, completely lost in a story. Her favorite ones are about the stars, the cosmos, the infinite possibilities that stretch out beyond what we can see. She once told me she wants to become an astronomer so she can listen to the quiet of space. That's how she sees the universe, not as a cold, distant thing, but as something beautiful and calm like her. She collects constellation maps, sketches planets in her notebook, and talks about galaxies the way other kids talk about cartoons. Jenny, on the other hand, is the opposite of everything Ollie is. She's loud, energetic, always moving, always talking. She's the kind of person who fills a room the second she walks in, and she never seems to notice the way her presence can overwhelm. She means well, I think. She wants to be involved. But there's a line between involved and obsessive, and Jenny never learned where it is. She micromanages everything, Ollie's outfits, her snacks, how she spends her time. She plans these elaborate bonding activities, without ever asking what Ollie actually wants, like scheduling baking sessions when Ollie just wants to read, or dragging her into crowded playgrounds when she'd rather sit and stargaze. That dynamic is hard for Ollie. Uncomfortable in a way that she doesn't quite know how to express. She's too polite to push back, too sensitive to make a scene. So instead, she shuts down. She goes quiet, more than usual. Her shoulders hunch a little and she retreats into herself. When she comes back to me after a weekend at their house, it takes a day or 2 for her to fully unfurl again. I see it in the way she clutches her book a little tighter, the way she closes her bedroom door and leaves her telescope pointed at the same spot in the sky for hours. And it breaks my heart because I know Jenny thinks she's doing her best. But Jenny's best is loud and insistent and built for a different kind of child. Ollie needs space, softness, quiet, and that just isn't something she gets when she's with them. When we were planning her birthday party, she was embarrassed. I could see it in the way she hesitated over the guest list, how her fingers twisted in her lap when I asked who she wanted to invite. She kept avoiding the topic, shrugging off questions with half smiles and quiet nods, and at first I thought she was just being shy. But something about her silence felt heavier than usual, like there was something pressing down on her that she didn't know how to name. So I sat beside her on the couch, gently asked again, and told her it was okay to be honest. That's when she finally looked at me with tear-brimmed eyes and said, almost in a whisper, that she didn't want Jenny to come. Not in an angry or dramatic way, but in the most heartbreaking tone. Embarrassed, ashamed, like she was afraid she'd be in trouble just for saying it out loud. I froze for a second, surprised, because up until then, I'd assumed that while Jenny might be too much sometimes, Ollie was tolerating it. I thought the discomfort was manageable. But when she said those words, I felt the weight of something deeper, something I hadn't fully seen. She said Jenny always made everything about herself. That she talked over her, corrected her in front of her friends, and brought attention to things that made her feel small. Like the time she said Ollie was too old for her stargazing obsession, or when she tried to force a big group game Ollie didn't want during a sleepover. Ollie told me she just wanted a quiet party this year with a few friends and her telescope and maybe cupcakes shaped like planets, and the idea of Jenny being there made her dread the entire day. That's when I realized the problem was much more serious than I thought. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. This was something that was making my daughter feel unseen, unheard, and overshadowed in moments that should have been hers. Ollie said that Jenny insults her every chance she gets. She didn't say it dramatically or with tears. She said it quietly, like someone who's been carrying something heavy for far too long and has finally set it down. She told me that it's constant, these little digs and comments, always wrapped in a smile or a laugh or passed off as a joke. Things like, "Why are girls always so dramatic?" Or "You're such a little diva," or "Girls your age always lie, don't they?" As if her personality was something to be mocked instead of nurtured. She said Jenny would make comments in front of others too, saying things like, "Ollie's in one of her moods again," even when she was just sitting quietly or reading her book. And then there was Lucas. Sweet on the surface maybe, but not always kind to his sister. Ollie told me that when Lucas hurt her, physically or emotionally, Jenny never took it seriously. If he pulled her hair, it was just boys being boys. If he called her names or threw a toy at her, Jenny would scold her instead for getting worked up. Ollie said it was like Jenny had already decided who the villain was in every situation and it was always her. She said Jenny would rush to defend Lucas without even asking what happened, that she'd dismiss Ollie's feelings like they were inconveniences, like Ollie was just being sensitive or attention-seeking. Hearing all of that hit me harder than I could have prepared for, because it wasn't just about discomfort anymore. This wasn't a case of two people not getting along. This was emotional erosion, subtle, persistent, and deeply damaging. My daughter, who sees the world through galaxies and quiet wonder, was being made to feel small in her own father's home. And the worst part is, she had been enduring it in silence, trying not to upset anyone, trying to protect herself the only way she knew how, by shrinking. Once, Lucas tore her favorite book, the one she had read over and over, the one with folded corners and little pencil stars in the margins. It wasn't just any book. It was the one she took everywhere, the one that made her feel understood in a way people sometimes didn't. When she told Jenny what had happened, holding the ripped pages with trembling hands, Jenny barely looked up and said, "He's just a kid," like that made it okay, like the loss didn't matter because the one who caused it was too young to be held accountable. There was no apology, no talk with Lucas, no offer to replace the book or even help tape it back together. Just a shrug and a dismissal, as if Ollie's hurt didn't deserve space. Another time, Ollie was working on a school project. Something for science class, a poster about the planets, complete with hand-drawn orbits and carefully colored moons. She had laid everything out on the dining table, concentrating with that quiet determination she always had when something mattered to her. Lucas came running in, shouting about needing markers, grabbing things off the table without looking, scattering her work. And when she tried to stop him, when she asked Jenny to help, she was told she was being selfish. Selfish. For wanting a moment of focus, for asking not to be interrupted, for trying to protect something she had put effort and pride into. Jenny didn't ask what happened, didn't ask how long Ollie had been working. She just scolded her for not sharing, for making Lucas feel unwelcome. Ollie told me those stories without drama, without exaggeration, just fact. But I could hear the exhaustion in her voice, the way her spirit had been chipped away piece by someone who was supposed to care. And the worst part was knowing that each time something like this happened, she was learning to expect it. Learning to stay quiet. Learning to believe that her feelings came second or not at all. Ollie never told Travis because she didn't want to ruin his life. She said it so softly, like it was something she had rehearsed in her head 100 times but never thought she'd say out loud. I had asked her gently, after everything she told me, if she had ever spoken to her dad about how Jenny treated her. She hesitated, then shook her head and whispered, "No. I don't want him to be sad. I don't want to ruin his life." And in that moment, something inside me cracked. She's only 9 years old, and already she's carrying that kind of burden, holding the weight of protecting the feelings of an adult who should have been the one protecting her. She's a child, my child, and she spent years filtering her words, biting her tongue, and swallowing her sadness because she didn't want to cause trouble. She didn't want to upset the delicate balance of her dad's new life, his new family, his new son. Somewhere along the way, she decided that her peace was less important than his happiness. It broke my heart in ways I can't fully explain. Because no child should ever feel responsible for holding together the lives of the adults around them. No child should be made to feel that their pain is a burden, that their truth will cause damage, that their voice must be silenced to keep the peace. And the fact that my daughter had been doing just that, quietly, bravely, and completely alone, made me realize just how deep this wound really was. I called Travis to tell him that Jenny would not be invited. I had rehearsed what I was going to say, keeping my voice steady, choosing my words carefully so that it wouldn't come off as an attack but as a boundary, one meant to protect our daughter, not punish anyone. I thought maybe, just maybe, he would understand. But as soon as he picked up the phone, I could hear chaos in the background. Jenny's voice came through sharp and angry, cutting through whatever calm I had tried to carry into the conversation. Before I could even finish the first sentence, she was yelling loud enough for me to hear every word, accusing me of destroying the family, of trying to turn Ollie against her, of being manipulative and bitter and jealous. Her voice got louder and more hysterical, filled with rage I hadn't even seen coming, and Travis, he didn't tell her to stop. He didn't even ask what was going on. Instead, he took her side without hesitation, without asking me why I had made the decision, without even trying to hear what I was saying. He told me I was being dramatic, that I was overstepping, that I had no right to exclude Jenny from a party for his daughter too. He said I was making things harder than they had to be, and when I tried to explain that this was about Ollie's comfort, about what she had asked for, he cut me off. He didn't want to hear it. His loyalty was already spoken for, and it wasn't with our daughter. It was with the woman who had spent the last few years chipping away at Ollie's sense of safety and self-worth. I hung up that call feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. I had reached out hoping for cooperation, for understanding, maybe even for a moment of shared parenting. But instead, I had walked straight into a storm, and the only one left holding the umbrella was me. I have decided firmly, only what is comfortable for Ollie will be at this party. After everything she's been through, after all the time she kept quiet to keep the peace, I owe her this. I owe her a celebration that feels safe, calm, and truly hers. No tension, no forced smiles, no one looming in the background making her feel small or invisible. Just the people she loves and trusts, the people who make her feel seen. This party is not about appearances or politics or keeping adults happy. It's about giving my daughter a day where she can feel completely free to be herself. She needs to know that her voice is important. That when she says something makes her uncomfortable, we listen. That her boundaries matter. That she does not have to sacrifice her happiness to protect someone else's feelings, especially when those feelings come at the cost of her own. If I can give her anything on her 10th birthday, it will be that truth, that she is allowed to speak, to choose, to be heard. There will be cupcakes shaped like planets, her favorite quiet music playing in the background, her telescope set up on the deck in case the skies are clear. Her closest friends will be there, and the people who love her without condition. And Jenny will not be one of them. Not this time. Not when the cost is my daughter's peace. Suddenly, Jenny wanted to see Ollie blow out the candles. She showed up that afternoon with a cake in her arms, all smiles and sugary frosting, acting as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't screamed at me through the phone just days before. Her voice was overly bright, her eyes scanning the backyard like she expected an applause for the gesture. "I thought I'd bring something special," she said, lifting the box like it was a peace offering, but I knew better. This wasn't about Ollie, it was about presence, about control, about making sure she wasn't excluded even when she should have been. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I turned to my daughter, whose face tightened the second she saw her stepmother walking through the gate. I knelt down and asked gently, "Do you want her to stay?" Ollie looked away, her fingers tugging at the hem of her dress, and after a long silence, she gave the smallest shrug. "I guess it's okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I knew that shrug. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't joy. It was the sound of her boundaries collapsing under the pressure of not wanting to cause a scene on her own birthday. She reluctantly agreed, and I felt a twist in my chest because even here, even on a day meant just for her, she was still putting other people's comfort ahead of her own. I nodded, told Jenny she could stay to watch the candles, and then kept a close eye on every interaction, every flinch in Ollie's expression, every fake smile she gave to keep things polite. Because I could see it, how much she just wanted to get through it without being the reason anything went wrong. When Ollie blew out the candles, Lucas suddenly shoved her face into the cake. One moment she was standing there, eyes closed, quietly making a wish like she always did, and the next her face was buried in frosting, the beautiful galaxy-themed cake smeared across her cheeks, her nose, her hair. The backyard erupted in laughter. Relatives, friends of Jenny's, even some of the kids started clapping and laughing like it was all part of the plan. Everyone laughed except us. I stood frozen for a second, the air knocked out of me, and Ollie looked up with wide, shocked eyes, frosting dripping down her chin, her hands limp at her sides. She didn't laugh. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, stunned, humiliated, and I saw her shut down in real time. Her shoulders tensed, her lips quivered, and she looked like she wanted to disappear into the grass. Jenny walked over, casually wiping a bit of icing off her arm, and with a chuckle said, "Ollie needs to learn to take a joke." Just like that. As if ruining her moment, embarrassing her in front of her friends, and turning her birthday wish into a spectacle was just harmless fun. I felt rage boil up inside me, but I kept my eyes on Ollie, because she mattered more than anything else in that moment. And I saw it, the way her light dimmed a little more, the way she pulled back even further into herself, the way her 10th birthday became something she would remember not for joy, but for the sting of being laughed at when she needed someone to stand up for her. And I knew right then and there that something had to change. For good. I found Ollie in tears in the bathroom. She had locked the door, but I could hear her soft sobs through the thin frame, the kind of crying that comes when you're trying not to make a sound, when you're trying to hide how hurt you really are. I gently knocked and called her name, and after a long pause, she opened the door just enough for me to slip inside. Her face was still streaked with cake, her hair sticky and tangled, her dress stained down the front. In the corner of the small bathroom, her favorite hula hoop, the one she had practiced with all summer, the one she decorated with glitter tape herself, lay cracked in two, discarded on the tile like it didn't matter to anyone but her. She didn't say anything when she looked at me, just wiped her face with the back of her hand, her cheeks flushed with shame. I knelt down and wrapped my arms around her, and for a while we just sat there on the floor saying nothing. There was nothing I could say that would undo what had happened. Nothing that would make her feel celebrated again, or erase the sting of having her special day hijacked and turned into someone else's performance. After a few minutes, I asked her softly if she wanted to stay, and she shook her head without hesitation. So we left. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't explain. I just gathered her things, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and we walked out in silence. The laughter and music behind us didn't stop as we slipped through the back gate. No one noticed we were gone. I could barely contain my anger the entire ride home. My hands were clenched around the steering wheel, my heart pounding with fury, not just at what had happened, but at how long it had been happening, how long Ollie had been quietly enduring it. She deserved better than this, so much better, and I was done letting anyone make her feel like she was too much or not enough. The next day's celebration went well, peaceful, calm, and most importantly without Jenny and Lucas. After everything that had happened, I decided Ollie deserved a second chance at her birthday, a day that was truly hers, without noise or tension or the fear of being made a joke. We set up a picnic in the backyard, just a few close friends, a simple cake, soft music, and her telescope waiting patiently by the garden for night to fall. She smiled for the first time in days, not the polite, practiced kind she'd been giving people, but the real kind, the kind that reached her eyes and made her cheeks glow. It was quiet, it was gentle, and it was exactly what she had needed. To my surprise, Travis came alone. No Jenny, no awkwardness, no excuses. Just him. He showed up in jeans and an old hoodie, holding a small gift bag and looking nervous in a way I hadn't seen in years. He didn't try to make a speech, didn't pretend to know exactly what to say. Instead, he simply walked over to Ollie, handed her the gift, an astronomy book with her name inscribed on the inside cover, and told her he was proud of her. That was it. No over-the-top moment, no grand gesture, just a small, honest connection. And for the first time in a long time, he looked like a father who really cared. Not out of guilt or obligation, not because someone was watching, but because he saw her. Really saw her. The way she lit up when she talked about constellations, the way she shyly hugged him without being asked, the way she let herself enjoy the day without flinching. I watched them from a distance as she showed him the planets she had drawn in chalk across the patio stones, and he knelt beside her, listening. In that moment it felt like something had shifted. Not everything, not all at once, but enough to give me a sliver of hope. Maybe he was starting to understand. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally beginning to hear the things Ollie had been too afraid to say. Ollie started going to a child therapist. It wasn't an easy decision, and it took a lot of gentle conversations and reassurance to help her feel comfortable with the idea, but I knew she needed someone. Someone neutral, someone trained, someone she could talk to without fear of hurting feelings or saying the wrong thing. She's still closed off, still guarded in that quiet, dreamy way she's always been, but little by little, I can see the therapy helping her. Her shoulders are less tense, her eyes meet mine more often, and every now and then, she volunteers a thought or a feeling that she would have kept buried just a few weeks ago. She told me the therapist lets her talk about space when she's overwhelmed, that she's allowed to draw when the words are too hard to find. And even though she doesn't share much of what they talk about, I can tell by the way she comes home, quieter, steadier, that something inside her is beginning to heal. I want to believe that one day she'll understand that none of this was her fault. That her quietness is not a flaw. That her sensitivity is a gift, not a burden. Somewhere in the middle of all this, I found out something I hadn't known before. Jenny had a miscarriage about a year ago. Travis mentioned it offhandedly, not as an excuse but as part of a much larger, difficult conversation. And while it doesn't change anything, doesn't undo the hurt, doesn't soften the things she said or did to Ollie, it does offer some kind of explanation for the way she's been unraveling in the background, grasping for control, lashing out in places she shouldn't. It's not an excuse, and I'll never let it justify the way she treated my daughter, but it might be a reason. People carry pain in messy ways, and sometimes they let it spill onto those who don't deserve it. I can understand that without forgiving it. I can hold space for empathy while still demanding protection for my child. And that's what I plan to keep doing. Because Ollie deserves a life where she doesn't have to shrink herself for the comfort of others, and I'll keep fighting for that no matter what. Travis came to see me one night, unannounced, standing on my porch with a look on his face that I hadn't seen in years, tired, uncertain, but finally honest. He didn't make small talk or ask to come in. He just stood there in the porch light and said, "I left her." I didn't say anything at first, just stared at him, trying to process the words. Then he told me everything. He said that Jenny had backed him into a corner. That one night, during an argument that started like so many before it, she said something that stopped him cold. She looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Ollie doesn't fit in with our family. You need to choose." And just like that, all the denial, all the excuses, all the blind loyalty he had clung to for years came crashing down. He told me that for a few minutes he just stood there, speechless, hearing those words echo in his head. And then he realized he didn't need time to think about it. He told her he wouldn't choose a woman over his daughter. That if she couldn't love Ollie, if she couldn't at least respect her, then she had no place in his home. He said he packed a bag that night and left. He moved into a small rental on the other side of town and had already told Ollie she could come over whenever she wanted, but that she didn't have to if she wasn't ready. He finally put his daughter first. After all the years of silence, of watching her shrink and hurt and smile through it, he finally saw her. And while I didn't tell him everything I was feeling in that moment, how part of me was furious it had taken this long, and another part was deeply relieved, I nodded, stepped aside, and let him sit on the porch with me while we talked about how to make things right for Ollie together. Ollie now lives with me and only sees her dad on weekends. It's a rhythm that works for her, one that gives her space to breathe, to feel grounded, to be herself without the constant weight of tension pressing down on her shoulders. Jenny is completely out of the picture now. No more surprise appearances, no more passive-aggressive comments, no more moments where Ollie had to pretend she was okay when she wasn't. Travis realized, finally and fully, that keeping Jenny in their lives had been slowly unraveling his bond with his daughter, and he chose to let her go so he could rebuild what had been damaged for so long. Their relationship is still healing. It's quiet and tentative, like something fragile being put back together one honest moment at a time. But it's better. Travis doesn't push anymore. He listens. He shows up when he says he will. He lets Ollie set the pace. And most importantly, he no longer lets anyone else speak over her, belittle her, or make her feel small. As for me, I've stopped waiting for the next emotional storm. The tension that once lived in the background of every day, the worry, the bracing for something to go wrong, it's gone. And in its place there's peace. Ollie laughs more freely now. She leaves her door open again when she's reading. She talks about her stars and her future like they're within reach, not distant things she has to apologize for loving. And I finally feel that my daughter and I are safe. That our home belongs to us again. And honestly, that's the most important thing.